Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Selamat datang and a warm welcome to everyone joining us here for Nyonya, just Nyonya, yeah? A special dialogue on identity, culture, and continuity of the Chinese Peranakan in Malaysia and beyond. My name is Janet, just in case some of you don't know. I'm very honored to be your moderator today. Today's panel brings together a remarkable group of individuals, each offering a unique perspective on what it means to be a Nyonya in the contemporary world. From cultural preservation to personal stories, food tradition, to feminism, fashion, to faith. And it's my honor now to introduce our distinguished panelists. First, we have Mrs. Lily Yew, Lily Yew. Here she is in this lovely vintage kebaya. I think she sold by herself. Lily is a proud descendant of Penang Strait Chinese families. We roots in Penang dating back to the 1800s. Both her paternal and maternal great-grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Lim Boon Hua and Mr. and Mrs. Yeo Po Chuan, were part of a Penang early Chinese Peranakan community. She's herself married to a Penang Baba. Lily has vivid memories of her late mother-in-law donning the desa and one. Just in case you don't know what is desa, it's actually our great brass. Desa is in Hokkien, yeah?
Yeah, it's a short.
Short, yeah, short also. And moi is sarong, and sango is an everyday reflection of this living tradition. She's a passionate entrepreneur dealing in batik, kebaya, and Nyonya reproduction and vintage jewelry. Having lived in both Penang and Kuala Lumpur, Lily offers a unique view on the similarities and nuances among the Strait Chinese of Penang, Malacca, and Singapore. She's an active member of several Peranakan associations across Malaysia and Singapore. Next, we have Mrs. Celia Yeo, Miss Celia Yeo, forever young, is an 8th-generation Peranakan on her maternal side, with a Malaccan Nyonya mother and a Hainanese Chinese father. She has balanced both cultural legacy gracefully, you can see from the way she dressed. A mathematics and science graduate, Celia has spent nearly 4 decades in education across Malaysia and Australia. She currently serves as Senior International Business Development Advisor at Melbourne Polytechnic, also holding the role of Deputy President at the Peranakan Baba Nyonya Association of Kuala Lumpur and Selangor. Her global experience and grounded cultural passion make her a strong voice in today's Peranakan discourse. Next, we have the ever young Melissa Chan. Melissa Chan is the 5th generation descendant of the Malacca Chan family. Raised in Kuala Lumpur. While she doesn't speak Baba Patios or Tupuk Sambal Belacan as she said, she blends the Belacan. Yeah. But she's still learning how to ikat sarong. Her heartfelt question once was, do I really qualify as a Nyonya? Yeah. Her journey of self-discovery through the Baba Nyonya Museum, most of them have gone to Malacca, is in Malacca, yeah, in one of the row houses, yeah. family traditions and heritage work has helped her claim her identity as a proof of a 21st century Nyonya. Welcome to the 21st Nyonya. Today she leads the Bandahari, a creative heritage hub in Melaka that also supports the wider Peranakan community. Last but not the least, we have a fine gentleman there. Dr. Lily Yew is a senior lecturer at University Technology Mara and a leading scholar of Peranakan culture in Southeast Asia. He holds a PhD in cinema studies from La Trobe University, Australia, where his work on magical realism explore diasporic and hybrid identities, such as the Chinese Peranakan. With over 20 years of academic experience across Malaysia, Australia, and Canada, Dr. Yew has published widely, including the Malacca Cat Kitchen. I think he brought the publication, and also wrote several articles in the Peranakan magazine. He led research projects with UNESCO and the National Heritage Board Singapore and UIKM, and is a founding member of the Peranakan Association of Australia. His work blends scholarly rigor with personal passion, inviting us to reflect on what it truly means to be a Peranakan in a modern world. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are our distinguished panelists, and I'm sure they have a lot to share with us today. So, without further ado, being Nyonya is both a personal identity and a collective heritage. It's shaped by family, passion, food, and faith, but also by migration, change, and rediscovery. Today, we are here not to talk about preserving tradition, but also how Peranakan identity evolves across generations, geographies, and genders. So, without further ado, Lily, as a person who grew up immersed in Penang Straits Chinese culture and who has also lived in Kuala Lumpur, you have a rare comparative view. Could you share with us some key differences and continuities you have observed in Peranakan practices between the North and South, namely Penang, Malacca, and Singapore? Please welcome Lily Yew.
Good afternoon. We shall start with history. Who are the Nonyas? Nonyas are actually female descendants of early Chinese settlers. They are early Chinese settlers who later became wealthy enough to create a local hybrid culture. With some time, Indonesia and even Burmese influences. It's actually the lifestyle of the rich and famous. We are all descendants of them. Many Penangites. I was born and raised in Penang, so I'll share more of the Penang culture. Became very Anglophile. And we have the British to thank them. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about growing up as a Nyonya. Okay? We are ethnically Chinese, so children are taught from young to address elders according to the proper Chinese hierarchy system. It includes social behavior, etiquette, protocol at all times, paying respect during ancestral worship, appropriate behavior while visiting and receiving elders. You know, there are certain things that you are taught to do from young. You know, your mother would say, you know, you have to call this Just you have to know how to greet, and then and also during celebrations like Chinese New Year, what to do, you know, or during bereavement, and somebody's funeral, somebody's wake, they are all to follow. And even at meal times, before you can sit and eat, you know what you have to do. That's what it's in straight what to do. Well, many skills are actually taught. I also learned by being observant. How little fingers, you're taught to tail bean sprout. You know, your bean sprouts, you have to tail them. That's how you were taught as a little Nyonya. You're taught how to peel onions, how to peel garlic, and then graduated to pounding, chopping, slicing. And I was actually my family's representative. And I'm always sent to my grandparents' kitchen before any ancestral worship. That's where you learn. You know, as a little girl, grandma will tell you, or your aunties will tell you how to do a lot of things. One of them was just, you know what a stone mill is? Batu bowl, we call it, stone mill is. Yeah, and as a little child, during certain festivals, you need rice flour. So you soak rice, so you are told to spoon soak rice into the hole of the batu bowl and the top, and then some elder will be moving the stone on top, you know, in the motion, in the circular motion, to get your rice made into flour, you know, that kind of thing. There was also a certain way to pound your sambal, your rompa, and then mastering the batu gili. You know how to do that? Yeah, you're taught from young. While there were maids, and sometimes in those days, even Hainanese chef, we call them chompo. My mother actually told me that to be the mistress of any household, you have to know enough to give instructions. So you won't be bullied. Your maids don't tell you, oh, this is this. No. You're the mistress of the house, you don't have to do it, but you know how to give instructions. I learned to cook through observations, and also, you know how Nyonya cooking is, it's all agar-agar. Right? So you just have to develop, you know, and learn all those things, observation, and eventually I developed a style and a palette for our unique cuisine when I had a home of my own. I married a Baba. I learned needlework actually in primary school. Oh, we had the French nuns and all those things in the convent. But I was taught by my mother to stitch your batik into a tubular sarung. You know, batik, we use Indonesian batiks most of the time. It comes in a flat sheet, but then you have to sew it into a tubular shape to wear it as sarung. So that was like tiny stitches using top sewing with white thread. So it kept on. I'd still do it, but not with white thread. And I later learned how to knit, to crochet, to embroider, and then make tatting lace. You know what tatting lace is? So all Nonyas, we learn all these things. Nyonya moral values are actually inculcated from young. Virtues like filial piety. Yes, we are very Chinese, observing traditional rites and rituals, and respecting prohibitions. You know, pandang larang, yes, taboos. Yes, we are taught those things from young, so you don't commit some sin. You know, Nyonya brings honor to her maiden family by being a good daughter-in-law. You know, your mom is the proudest when she gets feedback from your in-laws that you have been a good daughter-in-law. You bring up, yeah, you have to bring up your daughter to be so respectful that you will be the proudest mom. A young Nyonya learns about Panjang Larang once she reaches puberty. When you're young, you're running all over the place. But once you reach puberty, you can't do this, you cannot do that. You have to sit properly, you have to eat properly, all these things. And as a young bride, when you're a young bride, you go into your in-laws, make sure you know how to behave. And when you get pregnant, there's so many pantangs, you cannot do this, you cannot that, you cannot go there, where there's something, unclean, when I'm cooking something special, no, when you're pregnant, you cannot go. And also, when she becomes a mother, immediately post-childbirth. Okay, a young Nyonya learns, a Nonya's pride in raising her children is, if her brood is ever branded kurang ajar, yang kasih, my goodness, it's a mother's ultimate shame. You don't know how to bring up your daughter or children or sons. Growing up, I wore what was in trend. Let miniskirt, whatever that was in fashion. It's only later that I chose to wear sarong kebaya for special occasions. You know what I mean? We didn't grow up wearing sarong kebayas. We wore whatever. If you go now and see me at home, I'll be t-shirt and shorts, huh? Sorry, old grandmother, yes. It's only that we dress up. When you are out, you make sure. And I was taught how to tie my sarong traditionally. I still do. I don't send my sarongs with high highs. I don't sew it that way. And also how to pin my croissant. Okay. Well, I love sewing. And I learned to customize my own kebaya. What you see, I make. And then I actually was running a kebaya and sarong business, and hopefully one day I will leave a legacy of conserving my cultural heritage. My grandmother enjoys keroncong music. You know what keroncong music is? My grandmother did that. But my mother was more into Western music. She used to lull us to sleep, with music like It's a Wonderful World, I can't remember now, those Western tunes. I grew up, Cliff Richard, Elvis Presley, yes, Beatles, that's my time. Actually, my grandmothers will actually turn in their graves to see me joget. It wasn't done. Okay? We didn't joget. It was my father who actually taught me to do the tango. See how old I am? It was my father who actually taught me to do the tango. Of course, I learned how to waltz, I learned how to do rumba, foxtrot, okay? So later in my teens, I was doing jive, rock and roll. Remember those days? So if you tell me to do joget now, it didn't happen then. Being Nyonya, being a Penang Nyonya means knowing how to communicate in Hokkien. The Hokkien dialects like the words like mua. We use desa, tengsa, tuan tente. You know what that means? Baju panjang, baju pendek, and Nyonya kebaya. And we also call Hua Yang Ti Zhang. Right? No Nyonya Zhang, huh? But that is Hua Yang Ti Zhang. But we learn, we all can speak colloquial Malay. It was the how we communicated with Ahmad the driver, okay, Kebun the gardener. Do you remember we call those days every driver, Malay driver is called Ahmad? Every gardener is called Kebun. Yes? And all those who can't otherwise understand. So it was colloquial Malay. A Nyonya is expected to be prim and proper at all times. Above all, a Nyonya is expected to have finesse in her actions and grace in her behavior. It's definitely not by just putting Nyonya, Nya as a prefix before her name. So it doesn't make you a Nyonya just because you put a prefix Nya, okay? So it's a culture. So I've sort of given you what Nyonya, how it was like. Things have changed a lot, but I think Janet wants me to tell you the differences. Okay, let me go to that. Differences between the northern Penang Nonyas and the southerners. Actually, I did this in a colloquium, for a colloquium in Penang many years ago. But just to give you, I will take half an hour to tell you, but just to cut it short. History, just to give you a bit of history. Penang was founded in 1786, but early Chinese were already in Kedah and upper regions of Perak. Did you know that? No, we were already there in Penang before Francis Light came. Some migrants actually arrived through Siam. You know, a lot of Thai people are Teochews. Do you know? Yes, we came down from the Yunnan. The Chinese came down from the Yunnan. That was long ago. Okay, we came down from the Yunnan, and some migrants actually arrived also through Burma. Some came direct from China as indented coolies, that kind of thing also, and people who came from Medan, Indonesia. A lot of the Chinese actually came to Indonesia, different parts of Indonesia, before they even arrived in Malaysia. A very good example. Peter, do you mind? Peter, do you mind? Oh no, he wasn't listening. Peter's ancestors came from Asahan through Indonesia to Penang. So if you really know history, you know, don't listen to a lot of things that I'm told you. I'm telling you this. Okay, he came from Asahan in Medan, near Medan, to Penang. And my actually ancestor came from China, but he stopped at Dili before going to Penang. Dili is Medan. Okay. And the other thing, the Chinese presence in Malacca was very much earlier, with many who arrived across the straits from Palembang and other parts of Indonesia, where they had first settled. The Chinese were in Indonesia long before us, but they came to Malaya then. Okay, some later migrated to Singapore. When the British decided to move the administrative headquarters and port to Singapore, but Singapore was only founded in 1819. So if you think of Malacca, where the Chinese came from, you're talking of the main voyages of Cheng Ho or the traders, but lots of Chinese have been to Indonesia. 1400s, they were really there. They stayed in Indonesia and later moved to Peninsula Malaya there. So a lot of the patois in the south, you can see a lot of Indonesian words. Okay, but in Penang, of course, it's different. We speak Hokkien. So that's where I'm coming from. Hokkien is spoken by Penangites. We have retained our mother tongue, whereas the Southerners speak Baba Patois with differences, like how we address elders. Can you hear me at the back? Yes? Okay. Okay. So you have the way we even address our elders, you know. Like I will call my mother Mama, you know. The Southerners will say Nyonya, right? Yes? And then my grandmother is Ama in Hokkien, but the Southerners will call Mama. So that's a confusion. If I say Mama, if I come from Penang, you know I'm talking about my mother, but if you come from the South, you're talking about grandmother, what generation? So, and then of course we have Tuachi, you know, when you address me as Tuachi, I'm the elder sister, but in the South it's Tachi. So there are lots of words, like I said earlier, is like Hokkien Tijang, is Nyonya Chang. Kusi, I'm sorry. We have things like Jiu Cha, the Southerners won't know, but then we have Jiu Cha, we have Hong Ba, we have Poroikan. But in the Southern, you have Hong Te, which we don't do. We have Ite Sio, right? And you have Seba, right? Which we don't do. And then the other question, okay, I think I've covered the three differences. If you give me, I'll speak another half an hour. Sorry. so I think I answered your question. And thank you. Sorry, I got carried on.
Thank you, Lily, for sharing personal stories about the differences and the similarity between the Nyonyas of the North and the South. Very interesting. We'll come back to her later. For now, we go to Celia Yeo. Celia, sorry. Celia, you spent nearly 4 decades in education and have lived between Australia and Malaysia. How has this bicultural life shaped your own sense of identity as a Peranakan woman? And how do you see tradition adapting in global context? Please, Celia.
Thank you. Thanks, Nyonya. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to be here today amongst these beautiful people here, sharing our experiences in our lives as a Peranakan woman, I guess as a Nyonya. I would like to address firstly the question that has been brought to us by Janet in terms of being in the education industry for almost 4 decades now. That shows my age, right? So I'll just tell you, I'm 62 years old this year. Yeah, already a senior citizen. I came on the LRT $1.50 only. And that's all part of being Nyonya, you know. We are all, very calculative in terms of what we spend, how much we spend, and all sorts of things. So as soon as I turned 60, I went to get my card. And even though I don't use it all the time, when I do use it, I get my senior citizen discounts. So yes, I spent close to 4 decades in education, and much of my life has been a dance between Australia and Malaysia. Two very different but very enriching environments in their own rights, yeah. And this bicultural journey has definitely shaped my identity, not just as an educator, but more deeply as a Peranakan person or woman. And living between these two worlds has made me more conscious of the richness and uniqueness of our heritage. To be really honest, as a young girl, I didn't see or feel myself as a Peranakan person. It was only after I came back from overseas studying in Australia, and I came back where my Peranakanness, I guess, took over, and I became a lot more interested, and I was looking at things in a different way and trying to find out more about why am I doing this, why did my mother tell me to do this, and so on and so forth, yeah. So when I'm in Australia, I often find myself being a cultural ambassador. I have told so many Australians that Nyonya is not a noodle. Yeah, a kabaya is not an airline. Okay, it's not a new airline. All right, it's everything mashed in between. You know, your money and your threads and the sewing and all the different cultures that you can see. Many Australians now are much more in the know about Peranakans. Yeah, I think you guys have a lot of friends overseas as well who understand where Peranakan comes from or what they are. In fact, I was recently in Melbourne, and one of my friends, Australian friends, who lived in Malaysia for a number of years, I went to Melbourne, he was living there, and he invited me over for dinner. Guess what? Guess what I had for dinner? Nasi. So I had nasi goreng. And nasi kemuli. Okay, some of you will know nasi kemuli as being the type of rice that's cooked, and in particular for weddings and birthdays, yeah, celebrations of sorts. And he cooked it and it was really good. And where did he learn that? He learned that in Malaysia. He went to one of the cooking events, Babas Can Cook, that was organized by PPP and KLS at the time. And he got that recipe and he cooked it for me when I was in Melbourne. So I was really proud at the time that he actually cooked me a proper, Peranakan dish, even though it was not a wedding or a birthday. It's okay, yeah. It was pretty good too. So, and when I returned to Malaysia, I see our tradition with fresh eyes, yeah, with fresh eyes. I appreciate the beauty of our rituals, the food, and also our budi bahasa. Okay, how we react, how we respect our elders. But I also realize some things need to evolve. We can't expect the next generation to grind rempah every weekend just to cook. I don't think any of even my generation, Melissa and I, right? Melissa's a lot younger than me, by the way. We don't grind our rempahs every weekend, okay? Maybe until you came for dinner one day, I will actually cook the rempah for you, okay? But I don't do it on a normal basis, okay? So we try to evolve, but we want to try and show the younger generation why we might be doing that, why we used to do that, and what it's like, you know. So I'll give you an example. Every year, my mother's birthday, we have a Nyonya party. Some of you have been, okay? Now, every year, because we cook for the masses, 30 kgs of mangkok. Alright? So we used to use the mandolin to shred the mangkok. Last year, I don't know why, for some reason, I made everyone hand cut the mangkok. My sisters, my nieces, they hand cut 30 kgs of mangkok, okay? Now, at the end of that, they all said, never again. Because their hands were all bruised, they were all painful, etc. But what did they say to me at the end of that? It tastes better, and actually it lasted longer as well. Yeah. So now they know what it's like doing it the traditional way or the old way, let's say. Okay? But they will still go back to the mandolin after this. They will never haircut again after last year, okay? So that's one of the things that we try to do. It will evolve. What we do will evolve. But we just need to make sure that they also know why and how it was done previously. Okay, so that's just one of the ideas, yeah. So what this life has actually taught me is that tradition doesn't have to be static. It doesn't have to be static. It's not a museum piece. It lives in us, and like us, it can adapt, travel, and grow. Okay? And I've seen younger Peranakans embracing their identity in new ways, both in through fashion. You've seen people wearing the kebaya in different ways as well, through music, through food fusion, and even digital storytelling. And I'm sure Melissa can tell you a little bit more about that, the digital storytelling later on. And I think that's wonderful that we can honor our roots without being rooted to the past. Okay, so it's not really a culture that is dying, it is there. and we live with it. Okay, and we evolve. Okay? What else have I got for you? I think, personally, being a Peranakan, it's a global context. In a global context means carrying my mother's and sometimes my grandmother's voice in my head when I walk into an international boardroom or a meeting, for example. It means bringing semangat gotong royong, okay, and to how I build partnerships in my work as well. All right, it means being firm, but always with budi bahasa. And it means that wherever I am, whether in Melbourne or Brisbane or KL or anywhere else, I carry my heritage proudly, not just in what I wear or say, but in how I live and learn and lead. So I will use the word Peranakanness, yeah. I don't think it's a word, but I'll use it anyway. So my Peranakanness is not just at home, not just with the family, but it's also brought into my workplace as well. I mean, people don't know that, but that's just how I work. And I can see that now in me. If you ask me this maybe 20, 30 years ago, I would not have been able to tell you that. Yeah. So like I said, my global experience has actually enhanced my understanding of this culture. And I'll leave it at that, and let Melissa carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia, for sharing the wonderful Nyonya beyond Malaysia. We'll come back to that again. So next we have the youngest among the panel, Melissa Chan. Lisa, I love that you have openly shared your doubts about belonging. Am I a Nyonya? Do I qualify as a Nyonya? There's something many younger Chinese Peranakans feel today, actually. Yeah. And how did your journey from questioning to stewardship at the Bendahara reshape your idea of what it means to be a Nyonya? Melissa.
Thanks, Janet. So I just want to start also by thanking Auntie Lily for allowing me the space to be here, because I think it is a testament to the fact that you open up. I said that I don't eat, I don't know how to promote sambal belacan, and I'm learning how to cut sorrow, and yet you allow me the space to be here is a huge testament to, I think, allowing also, and I'm not young anymore, but allowing those that are discovering their roots to a space to grow into what it means to be a Nyonya. Yeah, so thanks a lot for that. Yeah, and I'm also thankful that the topic today is about being Nyonya and not doing Nyonya. Because by all accounts, if you judge me based on what I do, then I think I wouldn't have any reason to be here. So what does it mean to be Nyonya? Now, sorry, I'm going to read a little bit because I'm better at writing than talking, but I'll try. So what does it mean to be Nyonya? The question for me was, what does it mean for me to be a woman? And what does it mean to be a Peranakan Chinese woman in the 21st century? I think that was on my heart as I was also growing up. I learned how to be a Nyonya in a house, but it wasn't really at home. It was more, I just want to say that it's not true that it's not really at home. I think I must have learned that from my mom. Because she's here, right? Okay. Nyonya must respect elders. But I learned it formally in a house museum, which was a working place. So I really appreciate also what Celia's sharing about what it means to be a 21st century Nyonya working in the workplace. And I think I learned and picked that up as I was working at the Baba Nyonya Heritage Museum, which is a house museum. When I was working at the museum, I spent a lot of time with my uncle, who has passed on now, and my aunts, listening to their stories, trying to imagine what their life was like when they were young, growing up in 1930s to 1950s Malacca. Time with the elder generation in my family gave me a sense of belonging, that this is the lineage that I had come from, I can't run away from it. It gave me a sense of assurance. They gave me a sense of assurance that these are the roots of my identity. So I think it was the same sense of giving me a sense of place, a sense of this is a seat at our house that gave me that assurance and belonging. There was a certain understanding of the culture that transpired in its own way as they shared through love. When my aunt would smell my cheek, so the way of like kissing is like to smell, yeah. And I could smell that bedak sejuk powder on her. A certain excellence that was taught through the halus chopping of vegetables, which my cousin who served us as a cook in the house, or the way that my uncle and aunt would eat chicken chop with gravy one day, and then try to introduce me to ati babi bungkus the next day. The stories my father told me of growing up in Malacca when they were disciplined by Nyonya, or their traditions of mesti soja, their elders, so to bow down and pay respects during Chinese New Year, to opening up their house on Chinese New Year to honor their ancestors first. I realized that this was a generation and a community that had deep respect for their elders and also the ancestors. And that this community, from as early as the 16th century, were able to adopt, adapt, and assimilate into a local culture truly fascinated me. They had crossed barriers, bridges, and divides. As I was working on a book for the family, I also spoke with others outside of the family, people who were in community and other family members as well. And I began to realize that there were also a lot of similarities that were lived through their cultures. So whether it was the Peranakan Chetty or the Portuguese Eurasians, there were similarities, even though they are very unique markers that do identify the Peranakan Chinese. There were also crossovers of shared culture. So I think that for me was the most beautiful part of the culture, and I wanted to embody that to your question of how did that then lead to what I'm doing now in stewarding the Nahari. To have it as a space where other different cultures could share their commonality more than the differences. So I also want to just say that I do not deny that being Nyonya, I also adopted many less desirable traits from my ancestors, possibly, like being critical, being judgmental, and being controlling. So these are also things preparing you to be a matriarch. Oh no. So these are also things that I have to ask my Lord Jesus, how can He redeem these broken parts of myself that I too take on generationally, and it is still work in progress. I also want to end here with saying that I've spent a lot of time in Malacca tracing my roots, but more recently I've also spent time with my mom and in Penang, and I always thought that to be true blue Nyonya means that you only eat bakalat. If you don't eat bakalat, then you cannot be Nyonya. And I know that that's not true, so I today repent of that. Sorry. Yes, so yes, that's it. And I would like to say thank God for all Nyonyas from every state, Kelantan, Terengganu, East Malaysia. There's so much richness and diversity and so much more to be uncovered.
Thank you, Lisa, for sharing the diversity, but yet a beautiful culture emerged out of the diversity of the Peranakan Chinese. So, last but not least on the panel, our handsome gentleman, Dr. Yeo, David Yeo. David, your work uniquely blends film, heritage, and food to explore identity. In your view, what are some of the most powerful ways Peranakan communities tell their stories today, and how do these stories change, challenge, or deepen public understanding? Please, David.
Thank you very much. I have to thank Lily for inviting me to talk among the roses and talking about Nyonya. So thank you. I'm very privileged and honored to be here. Before I answer your question, then I think let me contextualize a little bit about the Nyonyas, which I think is quite important for you guys to kind of think about in terms of what has been shared by the ladies here. Yeah. So this is sort of like part of the research that I've done. It's like, just to highlight some of these points. Yeah. First of all, Nyonyas and girls are valued in Peranakan culture. Yeah, it's like unlike the Chinese, the Peranakans do not practice female infanticide. Yeah, so it's like which I think is very unique to our culture. Yeah. Unlike Chinese women, Nonya's feet are never bound. Yeah, it's like, Nonyas are probably, or were probably the first women in Southeast Asia to be educated. Yeah, it's like a lot of the Peranakan families actually employed personal tutors to actually school their daughters for the Nonyas. Initially, I think in Chinese education, and then eventually with colonialism in Dutch and in English. So they were probably the earliest sort of like educated Southeast Asian women. And if you actually have a Nyonya marrying a Sikh, you probably find that the Nyonya is probably more educated than her husband. Yeah, it's like so these are the cultural context and the facts I think about the Peranakan culture to sort of like contextualize and think about the Nyonyas. It was the responsibility of a family to marry Nyonyas well to a good family. Often it was politically beneficial as well to expand wealth and empire. That was very much part of the culture. This is said in the Baba Patwa, so more with the south, but I believe it's also very much practiced in the north. Itan Ajayana. Yeah, so it's like when we don't sell our daughters in marriage. So part of the custom was that it's like with the Tui that's actually given to the bridal family, the family will actually take a small token amount and give back the rest of the angpao to the groom's family. We just don't sell the daughters.
No big dowries. No big dowries.
And even though this is a derogatory term, in terms of matrilocal marriages, where the groom actually goes to live with the bride or in the bride's home, many Peranakan families actually practice this, and they do this so that their daughters will get married. It's like so there is the Nyonyas are privilege and value, and they're definitely not like your Chinese women who would live under a different context, or grow up under a different context. Nyonyas don't become secondary wives. It's like they are usually primary wives, with the exception of ganti kipre, which basically means that a sister might replace her sister when the sister has died, as a second wife to the patriarch. And that the thinking and the logic behind that is that she will actually be raising her nieces and nephews. It's like, so she will not actually torment them or bully them. It's like, it will be kind of like, her own blood. It's like, and that was basically practice. And so the only exception to that was really with the second woman. It's like, and out of practicality, a lot of Peranakan families married their their daughters quickly so that they wouldn't get raped. Yeah, it's like, in some cases, they become secondary wives, but that's really just the Second World War. So this is a very sort of like specific privileged context that we're talking about. Yeah, it's like, so having said all that, it's like, I think it's also important to kind of like acknowledge that the Nyonyas actually upheld patriarchy in terms of the patrilineal tradition. Yeah, so the whole emphasis of having sons is also very important. It's like, to carry on the family's name, your turunan. It's like, and find one of mother-in-laws will favor daughters-in-law who have sons and stuff like that. So, it's kind of complex, but I just thought it was very important to contextualize the world of the Nyonyas, like, in terms of these factual realities about our culture. Yeah. So, in going back to sort of like Janet's question, okay, so what are the powerful ways we tell our stories? I think food, without a doubt, that is like, is one of our strongest heritage. There are numerous Peranakan cookbooks. I think we all sort of like know that, which is why I basically focused on the Chicken Malakas in terms of the cookbook that I worked on, which is your Peranakan Indians. Yeah, who, in fact, I believe this is the very first cookbook that actually documents Indian Peranakan recipes. That has not been done before. Yeah, it's like, and I think we're very proud of the fact that we have actually just found out that we won a couple of awards at the Command World Cookbook Awards for the cookbook. So, yeah, so I have the book.
You have, Melissa also has some. You still feeling it? We have some at the back books to sell. Peppers. You get all.
So yeah, so we've got sort of. I have brought a few copies of the cookbook for those who are interested. If you want to buy them, it's like, I think Pepper has other stuff. So yeah, you can sort of like check that out later. So. Food is one big part of the culture, which I think is very strong. The other thing I think would be your colorful Nyonyas. Yeah, it's like the colorful Nyonyas in terms of the stories about the Peranakans, and I think the testament to that is Emily of Emerald Hill. Right, it's like, in terms of yes, the play that has been almost, I think, every year performed in Malaysia or Singapore since the 80s. Yeah, Emily of Emerald Hill, and of course the little Nyonya that came out after that. It's like, that has given the Peranakan culture a lot of visibility. So having sort of like said that, my concern right now is also, well, biggest concern is the commodification of the culture. Yeah, that there is a lot of commercialization that's happening, and it's a paradox because on one hand it gives visibility, and then on the other hand it's like, there's a lot of inaccurate stuff that is being perpetuated as well. One of my family is blue rice. Yeah, it's like, that is touted as Peranakan these days, which I've never had blue rice growing up in the Peranakan kitchen. Yeah, it's like, we only stain our pulut, which is glutinous rice, blue for desserts. Right? It's like, so nasi kerabu is a Kelantanese thing. It's like, we do nasi ulam and we don't stain our nasi ulam blue. I had a friend who came over for nasi ulam and he's going like, how come it's not blue? I said, it's never been blue. So there are things like that that I'm worried about in terms of, what is sort of like perpetuated about the Peranakan culture and the inaccuracies. I think I'm gonna kind of like just end here and then like yeah, then we can maybe open up, you know, more questions and whatnot from here on.
Thanks, David. Actually, what David pointed out is like, even in the early days, the Nyonyas were empowered, you know, from the day, you know, so then, like what David said is that normal Chinese family, apart from the planet, they actually don't like baby girls, yeah. So they say that if you have a little girl, it's just like having a basin of water and you just throw out out the door. So and also Nyonya girls and ladies are very strong outdoor, but yet in all that way they are this gentle, demure, sweet Nyonya. Yeah, I mean, you can see that the way they dresses, the way they talk, the way they walk. So all this can personified in their demeanor. Yeah.
Can I just share something? It's like, you know, so you talk about kurang ajar, yeah, it's like Lily. So this is my sister, the queen of the tones. Yeah, it's like, you know, she's your garang nona. It's like, you know, at a very young age, you know, we all get scolded, right? It's like, you know, kurang ajar. So my sister would say, "Lu kau tak ajar, tentu lah kurang." It's like, and you know, this is also sort of, I think, a testament of your and Nonyas who, you know, are very confident of themselves. Yeah, it's like, you know, who don't take nonsense. It's like, and it's usually the babas that are head-packed and the quiet ones.
Yeah, thanks, David, for sharing. So I wanted to open a conversation among the four panelists. So I just like, for Lily and Celia, how do you see the role of dresses and ornament in shaping Nyonya identity? Like how you dress, how your ornaments, you know, it's very distinct as a Nyonya, I think. Yeah. This is a very short sharing.
2 words.
Yeah.
2 words.
No, Lily and Celia.
2 words. Optics. Yes. What do you know? First impression. You dress like a Nyonya. The first thing people will ask you, Nyonya, and I'm so used to it. I get into a Grab, and the first thing they will ask me, Nyonya, so how do you know? How do you assume I'm Nyonya? You know, it's like all the time. It's like Nyonya Melaka. I say, no, I'm Nyonya from Tanjung now. Lobby now. So no, even if you're not Nyonya, you dress like one, you act like one, you behave like one. Like I said, the finesse. You know, it's you are Nyonya. You dress. So it's first impression. You dress like one. You may not be Nyonya, but the first impression of you get is you are Nyonya. First impression. So 2 words, optics. Yes. First impressions. Yeah.
Thank you. For me, same thing. Wearing a baju kebaya and sarong does it make me feel more Nyonya? I don't think so, because at home, like you, I'm in t-shirt and shorts, right? But I'm still a Nyonya to me. Okay. But I find that when I go out, in particular when I'm going out to attend functions that is Peranakan themed, like today, like any other days that I go out where there's a Peranakan theme, I'm always in my kebaya, my sarong kebaya. And actually, I'll tell you right now that sitting in the back of my car are 10 sets of kebayas that needs to go to the dry cleaners. Because I've worn it so often over the last few weeks that I actually have 10 sets sitting in the back of my car waiting for the dry cleaners. So yes, it makes you feel, does it make you feel more Nyonya, but is it just optics, as Auntie Lily says? But what I feel when I wear a baju kebaya is that when I'm not in this crowd and I'm outside in a normal sort of audience, they always come up and say, oh, your baju is so cantik. You know, it's so beautiful. So it makes you feel good as well wearing something like this. Yeah.
Thank you, Lily and Celia. I mean, when we say dress like a Nyonya, it reminds me of the song, you know, walk like a tuition. So you dress from and yeah, Nyonya. Yeah. So now I'd like to ask Lisa and David. So, do you think heritage hubs and storytelling spaces are enough to sustain culture across generations? Or do we need more active interventions? That is, this storytelling, yeah, very, very simple.
So, for Lego Party, it's a place that tries to bring people together to share stories. But I think with things that are changing so fast in today's world, to have a space that gives each other space to talk about what it means in terms of identity is important, but it's not, in terms of sustaining culture, I think it still has to be lived out in our everyday life.
Well, I think it has to be in terms of is it enough to sustain the culture? At least we have to try to make it so. It's like, which is why I guess talks like these, it's like making people aware. It's wearing the sarong kebaya and whatnot. Are all opportunities for us to basically maintain the culture. I'm just reminded of this interview that I saw on TV about this Palestinian writer, poet who was being interviewed, and he was making the remark about how to continue. I think the whole Palestinian identity and culture, and he was saying it has to be the arts. Yeah, it's like it's there where it is gonna go on to posterity. It's there where there are memories and documentation of the culture, and that's how we basically keep it alive. And I think when we have places like the Bendahari where people can come and share their stories, we can have artistic performances where we have creative ways of remembering. That's when the culture, I guess, gets passed on as well to the next generation.
Thank you for sharing. And I think I think a lot of us are aware that the Nyonya Kebaya is one of the kebaya in Malaysia and also in Brunei, Singapore, and also part of Thailand and Indonesia that has been nominated as an intangible heritage by UNESCO last year. So in that sense, we should be very proud of the Nyonya Kebaya, and it's very, very like what all the panelists are saying. Everywhere you go, people just turn around and see you, with the lovely embroidery, the story that is woven into the fabric as well. Some of the kebaya have stories woven into it. So it's really very interesting. I think we should be very proud that it's inscribed as an intangible heritage. Yeah. So without further ado, now we'd like to hear from you, the audience. So if you have any questions, please raise up your hand. Let us share your name. We'd like to know you better. But we ask you to keep your question brief so that others can have a chance. I think we will give you the microphone. So please do feel free to ask all our distinguished panelists right now. The floor is open. Don't be shy. I think most of you all know the panelists. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Rosemary.
I don't go back as far as our panels with the third generation, fourth generation, fifth generation. I think I'm sort of like 1940s, 50s, and my memory is my dad was Baba. He spoke no Chinese. He spoke only Bahasa and English. And I think one of our panelists brought up the thing about education. And I think my dad and my aunts were educated in English by the mission schools. And I think that brought along the culture of music. Because my dad was very musical. My aunts played the piano, my dad the violin, and their friends were mainly Eurasians from KL. I don't remember there were too many Peranakans in KL by that time. And but we did have, my memory, if my memory, I can trust it, we've been to Penang, and they had links, you know, all their friends or people who are married to Penang Peranakans. So only they know who they are. We just follow along as kids. And I always remember going to Northern Road and to one of the wonderful big mansions. I have no idea about our relationship, but we were very warmly welcomed, and they would always call Tuachi. I remember the name Tuachi, Chi. My father was Ba, and but they were all very British, their behavior, and the music was the entertainment. I think it was very fresh in my memory. We have soirees on Fridays, you know, after work and everything, and in somebody's home. And that always was my memory, the music part and dance, a lot of Western dance as well. So, of course, my dad married somebody from Shanghai, so the culture then watered down as time went. So I would like to know a little bit about the musical part. The cultural, musical part of the culture of dance, besides the crunch on. Yeah, thank you. David?
So yes, it's like the Pranakans were Pranakan culture. I think I have to say it's actually really a product of colonialism. Yeah, it's like they were pretty much the conquerors in between basically the colonizers and the indigenous people. So they took advantage of the opportunities that were available, and that was how they became wealthy. And hence, you have this hybrid culture where they've taken on a lot of European culture and lifestyle. So yes, so the music is definitely part of that. Before like what Lily was saying in terms of all your Western music, Dongzhong was the thing of the day at that time, fashionable, and then eventually the English music or European music started to sort of seep into the culture. And you have your dance, foxtrot, and waltzing and whatnot. Exactly, that very much became the culture, the ballroom scene, which is part of your Peranakan parties as well. Right, so, of course, that was also mixed with roaming as well. It's like, I remember my great-grandfather's birthday parties where my mama would actually be singing the Tunang Sayang. And then it's like, and you also have your roaming sessions, your joget sessions, which is very much sort of like part of what we try to do in our Peranakan dinner and dance and and what have you. So yes, it's like the music is really a hybrid as well Malay, yeah, and European music. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
I got a question for Miss Lily Yew. Being a Penang person, there is a card game, the black one with colorful sticky toys. Is that a Peranakan game?
The seasick,
That's right.
that is jerky. Oh, even then we don't use the word jerky.
Yeah, that's right.
Always tea and tea and yes. And the other one is seasick. The colorful one.
Yes.
Green, red, black. Yellow.
Is that a Peranakan game as well? Curious, or is it a Hokkien game? I'm not very sure.
It's a name thing, but I'm not too sure whether the Nonya's day, because my grandmother was a tea addict.
Because I got a friend, Catherine, I think she's Peranakan, and she is actually introducing this game back by, what do you call that today? She was asked by the Penang government. They had an event recently on the Nyonya ring, and she was asked to teach the game.
Can she? That would be wonderful. Peter, remember that. Peter is from Penang, and he's very much into the culture there. Which one? So it is cheeky. My grandmother was an addict. Every afternoon, she disappears. And in the cheeky society, there were a lot of people who lost fortunes. And what they did was they got their jewelry, won't tell their husbands, they got their jewelry. That is worth how much. So that was
Fortunately, I'm not in Penang, so I can't learn from her. But I met her in
but this is
it
it's actually very Chinese but forgotten. It's the jiggy that people are still playing, but seasick, I think very few. I don't seasick means 4 colors. It's Hokkien. Do you understand seasick, right? You have to answer your questions. Anybody else?
I think the lady in the back, yes,
Nancy, yes.
Hi, I'm Nancy, the tiger's mom of Melissa. That's why she's so demure. Anyway, I didn't come to talk about Melissa. I have to ask you, David, about the blue rice. Does it matter whether the rice is colored blue or they use gula jalam to cook the rice? You said that you've never seen rice, blue rice, except in Kuning, you have cooked with pulut.
Yes, so it's usually Guantalang that they use to steam the rice. But as far as I know, it's like, we've only seen our pulut, not rice, right? So I think these days restaurants are cooking their rice with Guantalang and then serving it and passing that off as Peranakan. I've got friends who are sending me pictures. It's like, we have blue rice, and that's Peranakan. It's like, so like I said, a friend who came and had nasi ulam was asking me, it's like, how come it's not blue? And we only have, blue is nasi kerabu, which is from Kelantan. Yeah, it's like, so with the Peranakans, it's like we only always stained our pulut blue and not nasi.
Not for us.
It's not for us. Yeah.
Okay, this is the point that I want to go a step further, because I feel that Peranakan food is actually the first fusion food. Alright, so does it matter whether it's labeled as un-Peranakan or Peranakan? Because in those days, when the Chinese first came, and their food, they started to cook curry. Where did they learn it from? They learned it from the locals, right? And then they added things like pork, and had pork curry, pork rib curry, which the Malays will not take, but it's fusion.
Yes.
So this blue rice is a modern fusion, and it's quite nice. You know, it's an evolution because Peranakans are evolving.
Yes,
They're
it's
not
like,
static.
so yes, no culture is static, right? It's like, and this is sort of like the where you sort of like put authenticity. I'm just saying it's like, okay, you can say that this is something that I've created. It's like, but don't pass it off as Peranakan, or that it is Peranakan. It's like it's something that I'm creating because I think it's an interesting adaptation or whatever. It's like, but the fact that I have friends who are sending me pictures that this is Peranakan or representative of Peranakan, that is what I'm sort of like concerned about in terms of the commodification of the song.
But if I'm Peranakan, I add a few natalam and make my rice blue. So it's Peranakan.
At one stage, I'm sure the Nyonyas were also experimenting, right? It's like, so this is the balance in terms of sort of like, where's your reference point when it comes to authenticity, right? It's like,
my name is Peter Yeo. I'm from the Persatuan Peranakan Bama Nyonya Pulau Pinang. I'm also the missionary guide writer for KL and Penang, and I've been asked this before. From Penang point of view, anything blue in our food is taboo. Because all are blue and black. But in Penang, we've got two types of sweets only that is blue. Pulut Inti and Pulut Tai. Pulut Tai is actually Pulut Tekan in Malacca. The reason why it's acceptable to us is because Pulut Tekan has got kaya on top. So the Hokkien call it Tiak Kin, we put gold on top. Pulut Inti, the Inti is representing gold. So again, Tiak Kin. So they become acceptable. Otherwise, anything blue we consider Tai Chokor, Chokma. Macam semayang, orang mati lah apa. So because of that, it sort of negates the Pantan Talang. We also are aware that in Malacca, the Kueh Chan Babi, Nyonya, blue and white, because Malacca people like blue and white because it mirrors their main porcelain collection, blue and white. So that's why they realize they want also blue and white motto to reflect that. But of course, the Kueh Chan Babi, the feeling of course is with the gold, it contains gold inside. So this is like some of the nuances that we observe.
Since we are today as being Nyonya, we have to draw the line. What is tradition? Tradition means it has been passed down for generations. What is new, what is current is a trend. It may go away, it may be accepted, it may not. So when we talk about tradition, I'm wearing a traditional Nyonya kebaya, which means that style has been passed down from my mother's generation. Very sad to say, I always tell people, batik is not traditional Arab attire. It's new. My father never wore a batik shirt. So it's this generation, it's this trend, this current trend. It's not traditional. So when you use the word traditional, be careful what you say. So if you say this is traditional Nyonya, stay with tradition that has been passed down by generation. So if you want to stain your rice blue, go ahead, it's up to you. Nobody's going to take you to jail or anything. But because you can say, I've embraced the Malaysian culture, embraced it. Okay, we have embraced it. We have not assimilated, we have embraced it. So in the East Coast, they do stain their rice blue for their nasi kerabu. Typical Penang Nyonya nasi pulang is stained with kuning, so it makes it gold. So if you tell me, oh, Penang Nyonya, what is this, kochabi, they like to use the word kochabi, oh, I prefer. It's not kochabi, your grandmother did not do it. You are bringing something new. So it is not something you can't do, but don't use the word traditional. Does that, Nancy? Does it sound right to you?
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank my very good friends, Ms. Chan Yui and Ms. Carol Kwok, both of whom extended an invitation for me to come today. I'm from Kelantan, so my father and mother both from Kelantan. So I was very intrigued to hear the differences that were brought up by the first speaker about the Penang, the northern and southern Nyonya traditions. So from Kelantan point of view, although I only lived there for the first 6 years of my life, but I noticed some differences because my grandmother, I heard, came from Medan, Indonesia. My grandfather, I heard, came from Singapore. But my grandparents only spoke Malay and English. They did not speak Chinese. And my father and his siblings spoke to each other in a mix of English, Malay, and a little smattering of Hokkien, all within a sentence. There were 3 languages. So I remember hearing that in my childhood. And I remember my grandmother wearing the kebaya with the sanggul and the, that chain link belt, I don't know what you call that, the metal belt, right? So she was a true blue Nyonya. I don't know very much about the differences about her food, but what I heard was very intriguing about the Malacca and Penang Nyonya because I never really understood it. So now I have a little bit more insight because when my mother was alive, she would, my mother was not from a Nyonya family, but she learned to cook what we liked. What my father liked. So I remember things like pongteh, babi masak asam. Those were things that we had quite often in our home. But now my brother has been, my brother's wife is from a Penang Nyonya heritage. And for Chinese New Year, we get things like juhu cha and, some other dishes that she says they are Nyonya. So I never really figured that out until now you tell me that the Penang Nyonya have different food traditions from the others. Thank you very much.
Any more questions before I just add on what you just said? You see, when we first brought the subject of Peranakan, it was coined actually from the Indonesian word. We never used the word Peranakan before the Merdeka. We considered Penang, Malacca, Singapore, the 3 Straits settlements of the British. So these were considered Straits Chinese, Straits-born Chinese, and that's how we couldn't use the word we are Straits Chinese anymore after Merdeka because the British had gone, we were part of Malaya then. So we had to change, and then the word Peranakan was picked from the Indonesian dictionary, and then we became Peranakan. So when it comes to Kelantan, Terengganu, and all the rest, right now we consider, even in Kuching and Miri, we consider them Peranakans, but originally they were not part of the Straits settlement. So you have to, when you talk about the Peranakans, you need to distinguish which era in time. So now we have the East Malaysians who are the Terengganu ones and the Kelantan people who are part of the Peranakan culture. So to the young lady, you have different ancestries, so you have learned from different ancestors different types of cooking. So it's a combination of everything, but you know now where the sauce comes from. Jiu cha came from Penang. Okay, Pulau Ikan came from Penang. Pong Teh came from Malacca. Okay, but Sebab, right? Yes, they come from Malacca. So anything from Singapore, they were all migrants lah, mostly. Okay, Singapore and Thai, and competing, that is what the Moluccans cook. So Singaporeans, because like I said, when the headquarters was moved by the British, a lot of the Peranakans from Malacca, and then they moved down to Singapore. So that's where the culture and the food, it's a mix of everything. So if you go to Penang and you tell them Jiu Cha, you don't know Jiu Cha. So you're not from Penang if you don't know Jiu Cha. Anything else, anybody?
Hi, Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. I'm Nabil Zahid. Sorry, I'm not Peranakan, but I'm from Island Totok. So my question is, to what extent are Baba Nyonya custom and tradition still preserved by the youngest generation today? Thank you. Sejauh mana adat dan amanat Baba Nyonya masih diingatkan oleh generasi pada hari ini, generasi muda?
I think it's a great question, by the way. One of the things that we are trying to do is to bridge the generation gap, because the younger generation now have potentially a different way of thinking, how they are Peranakans, or maybe they don't even think that. It's just like when I was younger. I never thought I was Peranakan. That was not my identity. Because I came from a mixed hybrid family. My father was Hainanese Chinese, and my mother is Peranakan. Okay, but the mother obviously brought a lot of influences into the family. So how do the younger generation now think of how they are a Peranakan? I think the first stop is food and clothing. Yeah, but we need to be able to instill in them the values of a Peranakan family, the values of a Peranakan person, as it has been taught to us by my grandmother, my mother, coming down, and now to my nieces and nephews as well. So it's very difficult. I'm trying to get my nieces and nephews to be more involved in the Peranakan culture and into the activities of the Peranakan people and the community. I'll give you an example. KL is hosting our next international convention at the end of this year. There's an international Peranakan Baba Nyonya convention, which is open to all the Peranakan associations around the world. So whether it's here, Indonesia, Jakarta, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, Australia, Malaysia, we all come together for this one big convention over a weekend. And I managed to get 4 of my nieces involved. They are between 20s and 30s sort of age group, involved in actually helping us to organize this, so that they get to know what it is that we do, what are some of the things that we think about and talk about for this particular convention. However, I have someone else in this committee with these 4 young people, and she asked them, why are you involved in this? And she said, and you know what their answer was? It's not because they think themselves Peranakan, it's because they love their auntie. The auntie asked them to do, so they do. So let me tell you that is actually part of the Peranakan values, right? You do as you're told. Just as I do as I'm told when my father or my mother tells me something. But now my 4 younger nieces and they tell that they're doing it because they say they love me, and they're doing as they're told. But hopefully, at some point, some of that will seep through, yeah, and some of that will come through.
Hello. Yeah.
I haven't quite figured out the solution, but through observation, what I've seen that's been very powerful is younger generation asking stories from the older generation and documenting that through social media and sharing that using social media. So some examples, I think there's a group called Baba Gabra that you can check out. They're doing really good work in terms of trying to share the language, and they go out into the street and they ask people. It's also very educational. I think education is a great way to help the younger generation also, but in fun ways that are engaging rather than formal classroom style. Yeah, and I think another one also is, it's not Peranakan per se, but it's called the Baja Laut in Singapore, and they're a minority community, but they've actually been documenting a lot of stories, working with lecturers, academics, to also then work with the community to, I guess, try to understand and articulate their culture.
There's a lot of questions. I don't think we can just take one more question, but because we're running out of time, so we have to.
If you have to go,
Thank you.
we are going to drag on a bit. If you have to go, we understand.
It's not a question, just a comment. My name is Celia. Somehow I feel there's a Nyonya a little bit in me. Because I have been told that one bit of my ancestry is from Yunnan, China, so maybe, I don't know. I'm part Buddhist, part Japanese, but I'm called a Malayan, so I don't know. Anyway, I'm here because when I saw the poster, I said, I have to go for this one. I have to go to this one. Because my good friend, Margaret Chai, I miss her so much.
So do I.
I lived in Japan for the last 5 years, and fortunately for me, just a couple of weeks before Margaret passed on, I met her. We had a meal together. But we had been. I knew Margaret for as long as I can remember. I was a young medical student, and Margaret was a nurse at the hospital, and she was chasing after me because I love my kabayas. I don't wear the nice kabayas like you do, but the simple short kabaya, and I was a short medical student. I started growing when I was in medical school. Where there were only 10 girls and 118 boys, so you can imagine how I grew so fast. Anyway, just my observation, as with Margaret as the Nyonya I know, it's just the elegance, the demeanor, all the good things. And most of all, actually the sincerity, the values. I didn't even know that Margaret was so rich. She's always wanted to drive me, come fetch me in her Mercedes Sports. I didn't even realize that she drives a Mercedes Sports.
And she owns a castle.
Oh yeah, I've been to her castle, I've been to her island, I've been to all the houses in Scotland. And it's just like I said, the value. You do so well, but there's humility, sincerity, simplicity in the life. I remember the day I wanted to go to Edinburgh, we were at a meeting, and Margaret said, "Oh, you go to Edinburgh? You have a place to stay?" I said, "Haven't thought about it." You can stay in my house. She went on the phone and called the butler and comes in the house. Oh wait, I didn't even know that I went to Scotland. It's the real butler. He picked me up in a Rolls Royce. And it's just amazing, I think. And I think those are the values of the Nyonya values in her that she has portrayed. And I really appreciate that, we had been friends until she passed on. I was just a young medical student when we first became friends. So I really treasure, and thank you very much. I got this poster, Lily, and we called each other, and I hope to go to the international conference if you want to share it with us later. Thank you very much. Lovely meeting you all. Oh, because of Margaret, I have all the village shoes and wires that I pass on to many students. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have just come to the close of today's dialogue. Very interesting, not only from the panelists but also from the audience. You have shared your story, whether it's personal or otherwise, but it's such a rich, culture of being a Nyonya, just being a Nyonya, the elegance, the gentleness of the Nyonyas. Yeah, I'm so proud to be here moderating this session. But before we close the session, I actually would like to ask each of our panelists. So, describe in one word or a phrase about what is Nyonya to you today.
My cultural heritage. My cultural heritage. I'm here today.
For me, I guess it's my family. And that's how we live the Peranakan and the Nyonya lifestyle. Yeah.
Coming off what this beautiful sharing was about, I think it's a reminder that to be Nyonya for me means to also be a bridge builder to other communities.
I'm not a Nyonya, so I didn't speak. Speaking as a Baba, yeah, it's like, this I guess probably has shaped me and probably has made me the Peranakan I am. Grandma, I guess, okay, when I went to school, I started realizing that we were mispronouncing all our names. Yeah, so it's like, when I was at home, I was asking Mama, Mama, mana pisau? And then I thought, kena mati, pisau lu anak Melayu It's like, so I guess that made me very conscious of who I was. Yeah, it's like, we are a distinct group of people. It's like, with our hybrid culture. And so these, I guess, were the things that shaped me, and I suppose the food legacy from Mama is something that I try to share with as many people as I can, and actually I try to go to the less known, more obscure kind of like endangered recipes of the culture that's not so commonly done.
One word, one phrase.
Food, I guess.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So thank you to all the speakers for such a rich, thoughtful discussion. Being Nyonya. It's not about fitting a fixed mold. It's about embracing a living heritage. When we speak patrios, whether solving daily or engaged through research, storytelling, or community work, we each carry the legacy forward in a meaningful way. Yeah, I think we can all agree that, and I think the speakers also have sort of endorsed that. So, on behalf of the organizing committee, a heartfelt thanks to Johnny of Warong, Old China, for sharing this beautiful space and putting us in such scrumptious tea and kueh. Yeah. Terima kasih also to our panelists, Lily Yew, Miss Celia Yeo, Miss Melissa Chan, and of course, Dr. Lily Yew, for their generous sharing of stories and thoughtful reflections. And of course, to our audience, thank you for being part of this vibrant and living cultural conversations. So may today's dialogue remind us that heritage is not only preserved in books or museums, but in kitchen, closets, conversations, and communities. So please join us once again. A round of applause for our panelists. Before we talk, yeah, I think there's still more tea, is it, Johnny? Is there any more tea? Yeah, we still have a tea and a little bit of quick break. And then do not forget to visit John Ang's pop-up shop of Isang Kabaya, and because today is his yesterday was his birthday, and he's giving 50% off to all his collection. So do visit him. Yeah, John. Yeah, John. Yeah. So, okay, thank you very much. Have a lovely evening and terima kasih. John wants to talk.